that was a little more professional, right?
Getting there. Last week. It's a low bar. Better than last week.
Slowly finding the old elements of the show from 10 years ago and on different computers.
10 years, really?
What's that?
Is it really 10 years?
Yeah, we started 2010, right? 12 years.
Wow. You must have been just wee babes then.
We were so ahead of our time, and I couldn't grow facial hair. Something like that. Welcome to the show, everybody. Oh, we're already getting comments. Holy cow, I got to open that up. We're going to do the Batman today, which I don't know any difference between Batman, the Batman, not Batman, and Mark, who's neurotic. It just happened. Your light broke.
By the way, I logged on to the StreamYard room about 15 minutes ago, and I told Mike my ring light just went out, and he didn't believe me. As usual, he thought it was the technophobe Mark who screwed it up. But you know what? I'm sitting here, hands-free, light just went out. You know what? Back to Amazon goes the UB size. So long, sucker.
Oh, I told you to get the Sun Pack.
It's too expensive.
I'm cheap.
Well, maybe if Sun Pack is watching right now, they would know. Yeah, I am
Sun Pack.
Big fan of Sun Pack. And I think that my lighting looks the best out of the three of us. So.
It does. It does.
Yeah.
I have this. Mine's okay. I can make mine a little brighter. Maybe I need to be a little brighter. But now with Mark, I should go darker to even his hatchet job out, which is what they call it when you're a DP, Mark. It's hatcheted if you're half shadow. All right. Anyway, you guys went to go see the Batman at a press, I guess call it press screener. Is that what they're calling him still?
Press screening. We did go to see the Batman. Actually, Janelle Riley, everyone, joining us once again. Yeah, Janelle Riley. We went to the same press screening in Century City on Monday, I think it was, something like that. And she sat, I believe, now, Janelle, you sat in the front row, right?
Well, the front row of the second section, not that super close front row. But yes, I like to be able to put my feet up on the little barrier thing there.
Sure. Well, as usual, because like yourself, I see 150 movies a year. I always sit in the back row so I can fall asleep if needed.
See, I need that little barrier because I knew it was a 3-hour movie. So I wanted to be a
3-hour movie, all right.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'm popping back in. I can pop in and out. Again, I ranted about this last week. What is with all the long movies? Why is everything so long these days? Is it are people afraid to sit with the editor in the bay because of COVID? So they're just like, we're done. We're out.
Well, we can get into how long the movie is, but I feel like unless we start talking about the Batman now, we're going to start getting a bunch of people clicking.
All right, go ahead.
So anyway, the Batman, it came out today. It was very funny how like at 9 a.m., about 150 reviews just suddenly populated the internet as the embargo dropped. And now you're probably wondering, hey, what does the middle-aged man think of the Batman? That's probably what you're wondering. Luckily,
wait.
Do you know here, and she's way cooler, younger, and smarter than I am. So I will briefly tee it up, now that you don't already know, and then we'll get Janelle's thoughts in a second. As you probably certainly know, the Batman is Matt Reeves's brand new take on it, which is not Christopher Nolan's take, which is not Joel Schumacher's take, which is not Tim Burton's take, which is not the animated take and all the other takes. In this one, Batman is only in year 2 of him being the Batman, and he is riddled with doubts and riddled with doubts on whether he can really make a difference in Gotham City, which is falling apart. And at the beginning of the film, the mayor of Gotham City is murdered, and then the whole thing spins out into a gigantic web of conspiracies from there. So that's the basic tee-up of the story. And then I just kind of want to toss it to Janelle and see what she thought, and we'll take it from there.
Well, first of all, I want everyone to know that this movie is 3 hours long. And I'm not necessarily against long movies if I feel they've earned that length. This one was somewhere a little in between. When it started and there was lots of slow shots of him walking towards the camera, I was like, okay, I suspect this didn't need to be 3 hours. That being said, I will tell you the things I really liked about it, starting with, I thought this cast was fantastic. From top to bottom. I thought Robert Pattinson was a really good Batman, really good Bruce Wayne. Although we don't actually see him that much as Bruce Wayne, it occurs to me. He is just such an interesting actor, always making interesting choices. Really, really liked him in this role. Zoe Kravitz is fantastic. Colin Farrell gives a really good, fun performance, but I don't know that someone else couldn't have played that role who maybe resembled the Penguin a little more. The makeup is so good, it's almost distracting, if that makes sense, because you're really trying to see Colin Farrell in there, and it's pretty flawless. Like you don't see the seams anywhere. And he's fun because he kind of leans into it with this like, hey, get the Goyles, kind of Gotham/Brooklyn accent, I guess. And Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon, this is probably like the most Jim Gordon has ever had to do. Like, he's actually a really prominent character in it, and he works side by side with Batman. He's his only friend on the force. Really, really liked what he brought to it. Oh, and of course, Paul Dano. This might be the best I've ever seen Paul Dano, because I'm very hit or miss on him, and I thought he was great as the Riddler.
Yeah, you talk about leaning into a performance. I thought Paul Dano was really riveting as the Riddler, but you're right. It's 3 hours long, and people will talk about that a lot. And about 20 minutes into it, I thought, haven't I seen some version of this film every 3 years for half my life? And you're sort of thinking, can Matt Reeves, the director of this and Cloverfield and the Planet of the Apes trilogy, can Matt find those unexplored seams, those stylistic and storytelling seams that kind of make yet another Batman film justify its existence? And I think, with reservations, I think he definitely does that. I think he does that in a number of really crucial ways. One is he makes this essentially a detective story.
Yep.
It's definitely pegged off of Zodiac and Seven and even the Saw films in one sequence.
Very much so, yes.
Mm-hmm. With Peter Sarsgaard playing the DA. He's involved in that Saw type sequence. So I think in making it more of a detective story than a superhero story, I think Matt is really onto something. I also, I like the fact that the screenplay was very dense and there's a lot going on. Now, a lot of these superhero films, especially the first one, they have a lot of, there's a lot of burden to introduce all the characters and introduce the entire world. And that's one of the reasons why it's 3 hours long. Although just to sidetrack, just to peg off something Janelle said, which is, Reeves definitely pitches everything at this grindingly low level, where even the car chases take on this sort of tragic inevitability, right? The very gait of the film is very slow and methodical, right? The way Batman walks and the way he speaks and the way characters look at each other is just this very kind of brooding, dark, and depressing kind of environment, and he really leans into that, and I think it works. I think, unlike the other films, even the Tim Burton film, and Tim Burton was a production designer famously, even in this film, more than the other films, I think that Gotham City is really a great character in the film. Yes, there was a time when I felt like the film looked as if Edward Hopper had designed New York, London, and Chicago at the same time and saw them all go to pot. But it worked, and I really felt it didn't seem very setty to me. It felt like a lot of it was done on actual streets. The CGI works seamlessly, so there's a great sense of place. I like the fact that he leans into the fact that it's a detective story. I like his influences in terms of Zodiac and Seven and even Saw. So I think there's a lot. I think that the foundation of the film really works. He sets it at a place and a time and an environment that feels, although the same a little bit as the other Batman, a little bit different. Janelle, yes, no, I'm crazy?
No, I pretty much agree with what you're saying. It's interesting because people ask me if they should see this movie, and I sort of have different answers for different people. Because overall, my answer would be yes, but I want people to know going in that it is a detective story. It's a very plot driven. There really aren't that many like big action sequences. There's some fun kind of like, little action moments that happen, but for my friends who like really love the Burton Batmans, like, I'm like, just know that this one is not trying to be fun, if that makes sense. It doesn't have the same sense of fun. It is very serious. It is very murky. If you like that, if you made the Fincher comparison, if you like Fincher, you will love this. I know some people who absolutely love this movie because it went in that direction. I think I will always be a fan of the Nolan films first, which has that wonderful mix of like a little sly sense of humor, a little bit of fun, but also, dealing with serious topics. So, if I was to stack them up against each other, it's still Nolan at the top, but for what this is, it really accomplishes what it sets out to do. And it has a, kind of a good mystery at the center, good characters. If anything, it's overambitious, which I appreciate, in trying to do so much and tell so much. And I love that, it puts us right into it. And it does set up all these characters, but it also saves a lot of time because it doesn't bother telling us how Batman's parents died. It knows we've seen that in 12 other movies, and it just gets right into it. And I think, again, Robert Pattinson like really sets the tone, and there's, references to his family throughout, that sort of, you know, fill in the gaps. So it's very interesting because in one way you're off and running, and in another way there were, you know, the pacing is very slow.
It is. And I was wondering whether people would start to compare it to Joker, right?
So, I think, yeah.
So there is a comparison to be made there, although I will say this, as a huge fan of Joker, and who saw Joker, by the way, at the Venice Film Festival, where it won the Golden Lion. I was like one of the first people to see it. I went to Venice that year. Dropped that one, didn't I? Boom, dropped it. I was in Venice. It doesn't, the Joker's depressing and brooding environment felt a little bit more like hip nihilism to me.
Yes.
It felt like trendy nihilism to me, right? Look how dark we are. Whereas I felt that, I think Matt Reeves really sort of dug into it and really got his hands dirty, and it didn't feel as if he was trying to make some trendy point in being so dark. That said, yes, I do wish maybe somebody smiled, maybe one person. Did anybody smile in that film? Go.
There was a couple times that I laughed, and it was like sort of awkward humor because Batman actually spends a lot of time around the police, and they're kind of like, we don't know what to do with this guy. And, you know, and they kind of make fun of, like, you know, sort of in trying to be sort of more gritty and realistic, they do sort of act like this guy's kind of ridiculous. You know, like, we're not talking about it, but this grown man, you know, is dressed as a bat, and he's so serious. You know,
but I think also that's part of the alienation that Matt kind of dives into, is that he's alienated from the people who really he is kind of helping. He's helping the police solve these crimes, but he's alienated from the police. He's alienated from people by his wealth. He's alienated by the fact that he can't tell anyone he's the Batman. He's sort of this alienated character. And I like the fact that the movie is constructed to sort of build up and lean in on that alienation. And to that, you get someone like Robert Pattinson, who is this, you know, brooding Twilight heartthrob dude. I mean, I like the fact that he was younger and more human. I like the fact that you do not even sense at all that he's a millionaire playboy. There's nothing. He doesn't show up to red carpets, and there's no tall blondes on his arm. None of that. He's prone to injury. He's prone to self-doubt. He's not a chest-out hero like Superman. And I like the fact that Pattinson played that really well, even when he takes the mask off and you see he's put dark makeup under his eyes, right? Which not only plays to the fact that he's trying to be this mysterious figure who appears out of the fog every once in a while, but also just, it almost, you get a sense like he's been crying, you know, then his makeup's been running. You sort of get that sense. He questions Batman's ability to affect change. So all that stuff really kind of deepens the character in a way that the other films haven't. And that's where I think that Matt kind of found the seams. He found things to explore in this film that have been hinted at, but never really explored in the other films.
Well, I feel like we've gotten to see Batman in the beginning several times, and then we see Batman when in later films where he's kind of got it all figured out, more or less. This is a Batman who's still figuring it out. You know, and even figuring out if he wants to do this. You know, I think Zoe Kravitz's character makes quite a few good arguments, like, this place is never going to get better. And P.S., she's right, as we've seen from all the movies, Gotham is always going to be a mess. And, like, makes a really strong case for, like, you know, these people don't deserve you. Like, let it fall.
That's true. And when you bring up Catwoman, which is interesting, because what I like that Matt also co-wrote the script, I like the fact that Catwoman, not giving anything away, but Catwoman and Bruce Wayne have something in common, which is issues with their father, right?
Yes.
And what's funny is that everyone's going to be talking about the production design, and everyone's going to be talking about how it stacks up to this Batman or that Batman, or is it too long, or is it too whatever. But ultimately, at least for me, you kind of have to take a step back and you have to ask yourself, does the story cohere in an overall sense, right? Yes, you experience the darkness and the bleakness, and there's a Batmobile and Catwoman's cool and whatever, but what is the movie trying to tell you? What is the theme of the movie? Is there a theme that really emerges? And does the story, all its disparate elements, all the characters, right? Is there too much story going on? Are there too many characters to introduce? Are there too many story threads to keep track of? Is it too dense for strong themes to emerge? I think the answer is kind of, yeah, in a sense. So I think the joy people get out of it will be more from just sitting in this environment. What I did like is that there were some little jabs, which I would have liked more of, about distrust of government and distrust of wealth, and the idea of people, in this case, Catwoman and Bruce Wayne, coming to grips with their family's legacy, right? And sometimes their families' legacies are very tarnished, and they have to somehow find a way to overcome that. So when he's giving us that, I feel like the movie feels more. Because when we say more, we don't always mean like more production design, more music, more CGI. Sometimes it's just more to dig into in your head. And Matt goes there just barely enough.
Yeah, I wanted it to go further in places. And I don't know if that's, a result of the rating, because I'm sure they're trying to keep from getting an R rating. And it felt like it's, it goes right up to the edge. I actually preferred this to Joker. But what I appreciated about Joker is that it went there. And I wish this had done that a little more. I also think, but it's a double-handed thing, because in sort of trying to be gritty and realistic, sometimes the gadgets and the suit and certain effects don't look as cool, if that makes sense. And I sort of miss those moments when you'd be like, oh, wow, that's a cool gun, or like the Batmobile looks so cool. And hearing and keeping things like more grounded, I didn't have those as many moments like that. But again, I think that feeds all into like how real and raw the emotions are.
It totally feeds into it, and I think it works. The only piece of tech that, if I remember correctly, that is a little bit out there is Batman wears these contact lenses, and Catwoman wears these contact lenses where you can see he's back.
See, I like that.
I like that too. That really was the only concession. But what I like about this Batman is that he really is just using, he's using the what's it called, the tripwire, the wires, right? He can fly up with the wires. There's an interesting moment in the film that I liked a lot, which is, and it's not a plot point, not giving anything away, but he's got those wings, those bat wings, and he's at the top of a building, and he's got only one way out, which is to deploy these bat wings. And before he jumps, he's scared.
Oh yeah, he gets
I've never
hurt.
seen.
There was one point, actually not far from that moment, where I did not expect to see him take the tumble he did, and I audibly shouted, like I was like, it looked like it hurt, and we actually see a damaged Batman. You see the bruises, you see him kind of walking around and slowing down, and I really appreciate that.
But that's the film that I think Matt was building. I think he did a good job doing that. I think that, I was thinking, and I'm curious to get your thoughts. I was comparing Matt's movies to his longtime friend J.J. Abrams, and Matt and J.J. are both sort of these directors who have taken long established IP and movie series and have relaunched them, right? J.J. obviously Star Trek and Star Wars, and Matt, Planet of the Apes, and now Batman. And what's interesting is that, I'm curious to get your thoughts, is that whereas J.J. is more of an audience-pleasing guy who just wants to give everybody what they want, Matt tries to find areas to explore and that are maybe a little more human and more three-dimensional than just giving everybody just a big fan orgasm, which is what JJ does. I don't know. Do you see am I off base there?
Yeah, for sure. And I'm trying to think which I prefer, because it changes from day to day. I would probably lean towards the J.J. Abrams side. I like, the fan service. I like the fun. I like the manipulation of emotions. This Batman, very well made. It's a good film. It is dreary. It's murky. And I think as long as you know that going in, I'm just sort of preparing people like, maybe don't take your 4-year-old unless, your 4-year-old likes that kind of movies. But it feels like it is very much for an adult audience. And I appreciate that they committed that, made that and committed to it. And I was going to say something about Paul Dano, and I forgot what it was.
He's so good. Now, the thing is that you don't really see, while you try to recover your thought, I'll stall for time.
Okay.
So Paul Dano is great. He does most of the film in this sort of green, kind of almost fetishy leather getup thing. But I found every one of his line readings to be pretty terrifying. I thought he was really good in it. So good in it that when he actually takes his mask off, it's not as interesting. But
it's fascinating because he's got a baby face, and it's kind of this brilliant dichotomy. I remember what it was. They did something that the Joker touched on, but I think is actually done better in this film, where they sort of talk about the people who worship these villains. And that is where I actually got some laughs. They did some really clever stuff with the people who are like rooting the Riddler on. Some dark yet clever little jabs that I really appreciated.
There is a little bit of a thing there about how the Riddler is using online conspiracy theory websites to sort of advance his aims. And I know that there's a certain amount of, topical, right? There's a little topical connection there. I don't know that people will necessarily care, but it's definitely there. So Paul Dano was great. I love Colin Farrell. He was the best. He was the best thing in it.
He's very good.
He's great. He's having a lot of fun. Now, in the movie, he's like a mid-level sort of gangster, but you can tell in that, last lingering close-up that he's destined for bigger things, probably on HBO Max, but he's destined for bigger things. I thought that Catwoman was Zoe Kravitz was fine. She was terrific, slinky and sexy, but smart, and has her own tragic history. And then
kind of disappears though. I did have questions where I was like, wait, like shouldn't we be going with her? I want to see what she's doing.
Well, you might if HBO Max if they close that deal. Because here's the thing too, is that supposedly this is the first film in a new trilogy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you got to figure if they do the Disney Plus thing, will Penguin get his own HBO Max show? Will Catwoman get her own HBO Max show? Right now, at the end, there's a little thing at the end which I won't give away that kind of speaks to a possible sequel and who might be in it. Should I tell people whether there's a post-credit sequence? Because the movie is so long, I don't want people to sit there for another 10 minutes thinking that is
like
there a
we
post-credit
did
sequence or not. Should I tell people whether there is or isn't?
I think you can tell them. Yeah, just don't say what it is. But
well, 3, 2, 1. I mean, there isn't really. There's a little thing. There's a little tiny thing, but okay.
There's a tiny thing you can miss, honestly. Go to the bathroom.
So you just saved people time, is what you're saying.
But I will say this. The best reason to stay through the credits is that Michael Giacchino, and I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't think that the Star Trek scores are very good. This score kills it. He does a great job.
That's the one thing that I think everyone agrees on is how fantastic the score is.
It's, it's just grinding and brooding, and he's smart enough to incorporate some actual opera. Ave Maria's in it. Nirvana, which is a song that was played in the trailer, is also key here. But ultimately, it's whenever Batman appears and he's got this piano figure that he plays kind of a little bit too often, but over and over again, whenever Batman appears, really sets you on edge. You're like, oh my God, here comes Batman. What's going to happen?
I really didn't know what was going to happen. This was a movie where I could see Batman dying. And that's what I appreciated. Like from scene to scene, I was like, what? Because it is so different from, I think, what we've seen before, where Batman's going to pull it together at the end, and obviously I suspected as much, but this was the kind of movie where I felt it was like, almost anarchy, where like anything could happen.
I felt that way in Joker also, especially that scene when Joker's in the police car and he's driving down the street and you see all the people who are standing on cars and lighting fires in his name. I kind of felt that. I actually might have felt that more there than I did in Batman, but
probably, yeah.
The big action thing at the end, of course, all these films have to end with some big save the world action shenanigan ridiculousness, and this one does too. But it's okay, and it's okay because I like the way that Robert Pattinson plays it. He plays it in pain, not sure if he's going to succeed or not, thinking what's his next move. Batman's always so sure of himself, right?
Right.
What I liked about Pattinson here is sometimes I felt like he wasn't really quite. He knew what he was going to do, but I never got the feeling that he always knew he was going to succeed.
It looks like people are expecting you to go off on some sort of Zack Snyder rant. Is that a thing you do?
Mike, that's not a thing I do.
That is a thing that we're known for. When Wade did a big Zack Snyder rant, how Zack Snyder was so horrible. But that was off. What movie was that?
That might have been. Was that Sucker Punch? Maybe?
Yeah, Sucker Punch.
Wow. So it has been a while. Okay.
Yeah, that's the big thing. But we do have other questions. From Beatmaster, who's watching on YouTube. How much Bruce Wayne is in it?
I don't.
Surprisingly, not as much as you think.
Yeah. And there isn't a big dichotomy between Bruce Wayne and the Batman, to be honest. There's one scene in particular where he goes out. He uses his, instead of going to a gala with, like you said, the blondes on his arm, he uses his influence to get into a funeral. And that's like the only moment you see him interacting with the real world as Bruce Wayne, and them kind of being like, oh, it's him, But he's kind of supposed to be a recluse, and people don't really see him as much.
Now, mostly you do see him an okay amount, as much as you do in the film with Alfred.
Yes.
The butler was played by Andy Serkis, who of course Matt Reeves worked with on the Planet of the Apes movies. And it's funny how like every Alfred is a little bit different from the previous Alfred, and Andy Serkis is much different from Jeremy Irons and from Michael Caine, some of the other ones. And I liked Andy great. I'd much rather have him in films than directing films.
He's much more paternal than the other Alfreds, and I love Michael Caine obviously, but like there's a part of me that like gets really frustrated because he basically raised Bruce Wayne and they act like coworkers. And Andy Serkis's Alfred is like, that he cares about him, and there might even be a line at some point where he says something like, "You're not my dad," or and he sounds like a petulant teenager, and like it kind of hurts. You're like, maybe not, but this guy, raised you. And they also sort of hint that Alfred gave him his training because Alfred was in Special Forces, I believe.
That's right. So, all right. So thank you for that question. We hope we answered it. Mike, what's next?
I just like popping in where you expect me to like say something important, but not really. I mean, is that it? Do you want to wrap that up and go to the next segment? I think you guys.
Let me ask, actually, Mark. I'm not surprised by the critical response. I talked to a lot of critics that I knew liked it. Do you think there are going to be some people who are going to be upset or disappointed, or this is not the Nolan Batman, it is not the Burton Batman? Are people prepared for this difference?
What's funny is that when I was leaving the theater, I ran into the great film critic Andy Klein, and I said to Andy, "What'd you think?" And Andy says, "This movie is so dark, it makes the Nolan films look like His Girl Friday." I mean, like, that's how dark it is. So people, it's just a grim, humorless slog that does work because that's the world that Matt has successfully created with his team, but it is a 3-hour grim, humorless slog. So just know that that's what it is. Now, people may be okay with that. People might have been more okay with that if there was more exciting scenes, right? If Batman was flying around and there were chase scenes every 10 minutes and there was incredible action and it was all over the place. It's just not that movie, right?
Oh, so I might actually like it.
Very good.
I think you might actually like this one,
because I don't like action films at all, because it's supposed to take you on a thrill ride and they always bore me. I like dialogue. I like heavy characters. I like leaving a place being more depressed than I walked into it.
Oh, this is made for you.
What's funny is that Stupid for Movies is made for you too. Sometimes you leave this show more depressed than when you came into the StreamYard.
Oh, every time I talk to you. Doesn't have to be on the show.
Unbelievable.
People have been asking me if it's better or worse than the Snyder movies, and the truth is those weren't really bad. Well, I guess Justice League, the Snyder cut, was kind of a Batman film. But I don't know, that's hard to compare. I like them both for different reasons. But
you know what? But to me, the Snyder film, Snyder is just like the king of like just pop darkness for the sake of darkness, or for the sake of not being the Marvel films, right?
Right.
It feels like it's dark because it's a cool thing to do and it feels different. Whereas Matt creates a whole, the world building in the Batman is really well done. It's very rich and expansive and feels consistent with everything else that goes on in the movie. It doesn't feel as if it's an affectation. With Snyder, it all feels like it's this hip affectation to make everything dark. And so it just depends on what your jam is regarding superhero films. This one is probably the least superhero film that I've seen in a long time.
It's interesting because everything that I could say as a criticism could also be a compliment. It takes its time. It's very different and unique and deliberate. It's overstuffed. There's a few too many characters for me, only because they're all so interesting, and I want to spend time with more of them, and so they're putting a lot in there. But like you said, hopefully we will get those HBO Max spinoffs, or one of them will return for the next movie. You touched on Peter Sarsgaard, who I don't even know if people are in this movie. John Turturro is in this film. There's a lot of people, and they're all doing so much, and they cast really great, interesting actors that I want to follow.
That's true. People like John Turturro, like when John Turturro is in a movie, it's going to be a cool movie. There's certain actors, especially character actors, where you're like, if they're in there, that there's something for them to dig into. And so I like everybody. There was nobody who wasn't good in it, right? It's very well cast. Everybody digs into their roles. right? Especially Colin Farrell, who feels kind of liberated by the makeup, right? Now, I know that, you were kind of bumping on maybe it was a little bit too much. I thought he was great. Paul Dano, liberated by wearing the mask. He can freak out as much as he wants, and it's consistent with that character. So everybody in it I thought was terrific. So the performances are, to me, are without question, all terrific.
Yeah. Yeah, Colin Farrell is very, very good. He's one of our best working actors. Sometimes I tire of seeing, I guess the running joke was, and I did not come up with this, so credit to whoever did. People were like, why put Colin Farrell and all that makeup when Richard Kind is right there? Or you could substitute several other names. Sometimes I get why actors like to do it, and actors don't necessarily always want to play themselves. They want to look different and sound different. But there is a part of me that is like, we know it's Colin Farrell, so we're looking for Colin Farrell in there, and, maybe just cast an actor who kind of looks like that.
Well, I'll tell you what, maybe Colin Farrell and Jared Leto from House of Gucci could have their own little spinoff.
Yes. I saw the LA Times made that joke and said they should play brothers in a spinoff, but yeah.
So,
but by the way, I was on board with Jared Leto. That guy was hilarious.
Me too. I thought he was great.
Whatever movie he was in, I want to see more of that movie.
Exactly.
Okay. Overall, you're saying see it, don't see it. What's your overall take? And then we'll go to the next segment.
I'm saying it's a good movie, but won't be for everyone. So like,
if you're a fanboy of Batman who loves action adventure and you're thinking it's going to be that, it doesn't sound like it is.
Right. But yeah, I mean, you still got to see it because it's a Batman movie. Like, it doesn't matter what I say.
Now, if I know nothing about Batman except for Michael Keaton, I don't even remember what the movie's about. I know his parents die and he gets mad. Can I still see this and understand it?
See, this is
the Batman character is like 80 years old. You should really know at this point.
That's what I know. It's his parents die and he becomes a vigilante. And then he's got cool gadgets and he has a British butler. That's what I know.
I think you might like this. I actually think you might. So like, I'm really kind of recommending it on a case-by-case basis to people I know. But in general, I'm saying like, yeah, go see it. It's a good movie. It's well made.
Like, I thought Joker was great, even though I knew nothing about Joker, but I liked it because it was kind of a dark, if you can get darker, king of comedy. And I liked it. And I liked psychotic, tortured characters.
I think you would really like this movie.
All right.
And it's got a good mystery, a good detective story at the heart of it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Mark?
I do too. I think that the biggest compliment you can give the film, even though I know we're a little bit mixed on it, but we're kind of mixed positive on it. Yeah. The biggest compliment you can give it was that Matt made exactly the film he wanted to make. I just don't see any compromise there. I think he made the film he wanted to make. It's just whether you agree with his vision or you jive with his vision. I think that Mike, as a lifelong depressive, I think you will jive with his vision.
I like movies with a meaning. It doesn't mean I'm depressive.
The meaning. As we were saying before, as Janelle and I were saying before, because there's so many characters to serve, there's so many story themes to serve.
Right.
Sometimes the theme, the bigger point, right? What the movie's trying to say, sometimes gets buried. I mean, it's there somewhere.
Just because I found Leaving Las Vegas to be a good pick-me-up, I don't know why you would think anything of me.
The thing I can say about the movie is that it's trying to do too much. That is not bad. There are so many movies I see that don't seem to even be trying. So there's a lot going on here. Maybe it could have been a miniseries. I would not have objected to that. But yeah, I'd rather have people trying to do more than, doing nothing.
Because the one thing I'll say, and this will be my last point, because I think Mike wants to go on, and I'm sure Janelle's bored with what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that with Joker, I felt as if there were. Of course, the answer is yes, there was, but I did not feel any studio interference in that film. I felt as if he made the film he wanted to make. There's going to be no sequels. Shoot De Niro in the head. Do whatever the hell you want to do, if that's the movie you want to make. And I felt with Matt's film, you did feel the hand of the studio in there somewhere, but I do think that Matt ultimately, to his great credit, made the film he wanted to make.
I agree, and I support that. So,
all right. Now we're going to go on to an oldie but goodie. Here we go. Ready? Ready? I like that. It's a really long ending.
What are we burning? There's nothing to burn.
When we used to do it, we could fade out from that, but I can't do this on this system, so I just have to let it play out, and it's too long. But it's buy, rent, or burn. So if you're right now watching, name a movie don't try to trip us up. This isn't like Stump the Band. This is name a movie that you're interested in, whether you should see it. And we used to be buy it, rent it, Netflix rent it, or burn it, meaning either get rid of it or just steal it for free from the internet. None of that exists anymore. There's not really buying or renting, but we're going to keep calling it buy, rent, or burn.
Wait. Didn't we ask our Facebook fans to come up with
they came up with some ideas, but I had an old graphic lying on my computer, so I didn't take any of their ideas because it's free.
Well, where's Elaine? Elaine, go make a graphic. Elaine, go make a graphic.
Elaine Ewing is doing our graphics. This guy agrees. Look at this. See, JJ is like, you can't even rent movies anymore. This really takes me back.
Thank you, JJ.
That's the goal. Redbox still? Where you can rent? Redbox?
Does Redbox still exist?
Oh, totally.
Okay.
Buy rent with Redbox.
Well, we did ask on Facebook and here live in the chat, and here we go. Ready? Here's the first one. Cassie Robinson asked about Red Eye.
I would.
Red Eye is the. I remember that. That's the Wes Craven thing with Cillian Murphy on the plane. I remember liking that. I remember thinking it was a bit of a return to form for Wes Craven, as I remember it. So I would say, I mean, you're not going to buy that. I would say rent it. It's a good one. And Cillian Murphy, of course, who has a connection to the Batman franchise.
Well, I was just going to say, there's something about the way Cillian Murphy says "the Batman" that I just absolutely love. He's such a great actor, and for him and Rachel McAdams alone, I would say rent it. And I love how it starts off like a rom-com. It's like a meet cute between these two people, but one happens to be a psychotic killer.
All right, there you go. That's our first one. Let me go back to comments now. Let's see. Now this guy's recommending stuff. Yeah, JJ was
buy, rent, or download immediately.
Okay, next one. Let's go to the next one. Venom, Let There Be Change.
Carnage. Let there be change.
Oh, hold on. Let me go to you, Janelle. You're saying.
No, this is heartbreaking. I have not seen it. I loved the first Venom.
Oh, okay.
And I am a huge fan of Tom Hardy, and I think that he is very funny, and these movies let him do that. It was just a timing thing. I was never able to get out and see it. It's finally available to stream, I guess. So I would say rent it, because I plan on renting it this week.
Rent. Hold on. Now let's go to Mark. This is very more difficult than doing everything. All right, Mark. What do you got?
Is there anything worse than Burn?
No.
Because this thing is just a bludgeoning that just goes on forever. And after a while, I reviewed it for Synagogues, and on Synagogues, I was like, the climactic fight is like two CGI workstations battling it out in a church where this wedding is supposed to be happening. And I just think that this thing is such a waste of Tom Hardy. I love Tom Hardy. It's just such a waste of his talents. He's so great.
Burn.
But I just,
Burn.
Oh, that's
I'm trying to speed you up.
Don't get me started.
Wait. But isn't it really short? I heard it was like 89 minutes long.
Yeah, 89 minutes too long.
No, well, I'll go in with lowered expectations.
All right, let's look for a different one. Alicia asked about Geostorm.
It's so dumb. It's so much fun. You know what? Rent it. Rent it and then burn it. No, I can't say that it's a good movie, but it is a fun movie.
Rent it.
I have to say, I do have a soft spot. I don't have a soft spot for Gerard Butler, whose career was like, I don't know what happened to that guy. But I do have a soft spot for not only Geostorm, but the one he just did. What's the one he just did with
Greenland?
Greenland. I have a soft spot for Greenland too.
Greenland was like pretty good. Yeah.
So is it a buy or?
I would rent them both.
Mark says rent. I think, Janelle, you said rent as well.
I would rent it.
All right. Let's go to the next one. Oh, there we go. Free Willy 3 for old time's sake.
I've never seen a Free Willy movie.
We had a parental guidance segment with, and we had a Free Willy just kept coming up, right? I think that was the joke of our old show. I believe that there was a Free Willy review that went on and on when Colin Hanks was waiting to go on the show. I think I'm trying to remember exactly what happened. But
wait, was that the one so we had Colin Hanks as a guest, right?
Yeah.
And we were
and Philip Nelson was doing Free Willy 3 or there was some kind of old joke from the old show. I appreciate. Yes, it was Philip Nelson. I appreciate that we have some old viewers in the audience on our old jokes. Gotta love it. Let's see what the next one is. I think.
By
Oh,
the
here.
way, I'm taking donations for a new ring light.
Yeah. You mean the cheap one I told you not to buy didn't work, huh? Matt James asked about 45 Years. Do you know that movie?
Oh, yeah, it's so good. That last shot, everybody talks about the last shot in 45 Years when they're on the dance floor and she kind of looks at him and it's all there, almost like 45 years of their marriage, which is kind of, crumbling a little bit, is all there in that last shot of 45 Years. And it was just, that's a great film. It was devastating.
It's a very good film. Are you doing buy?
Is that a buy, Mark, or a rent?
No, that's a buy.
Oh, all right, buy.
Don't actually like. Okay, when you say buy, do you mean like spend your money on it?
Yes, it's so worth it. You would want to spend money on it. That's what buy means. It doesn't mean actually buy, but it means
it's a very strong
of it.
It's a very strong rent.
Yeah. So what a buy is?
I can't tell our audience to go buy a Charlotte Rampling film. It's just not going to.
A buy means you should go.
Charlotte Rampling.
A buy means you should see this movie, and most people are okay spending money on a movie, Mark, unlike you with your stupid Ring camera. Like if it's a good movie and I should see it, should I see it? That's all.
Maybe it should be rent, pirate, or burn.
Yeah, burn was pirate. That was supposed to be.
Gotcha.
Burning. Remember, we used to burn from the internet. You used to burn a CD or DVD. That's what burn came from. Yeah.
45 Years is a very good movie. Charlotte Rampling is excellent. Check it out. I wouldn't say buy because that implies you're going to watch it again and again, but rent it.
See, Janelle understands the concept of buy, rent, or burn, Mark.
Look, I've never done buy, rent, or burn before. I don't know what it is.
Got a couple more comments coming in. Hereditary.
Buy.
So you would. So I like that movie a lot. I mean, I'm not a fan of that type of film. I wouldn't want to necessarily revisit it, but I will go with Janelle on this.
Oh, great! I'm going to give it a buy.
Yeah. Okay. Great movie. I can't wait to see what Ari Aster does next. I did not like Midsommar as much as Hereditary, but again, I love that he's doing what he's doing. Oh, and by the way, for recommendation, if you've never seen his short film, The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, it is one of the most brilliant, disturbing short films I have ever seen, and you can just Google it. I think it's on Vimeo.
All right. Let's go one more buy, rent, or burn. Last one of the day. Here we go.
The Great Wall. The Great Wall didn't prove how much China could spend on a movie. It proved how much China could waste on a movie. So they spend all this money. They bring in Matt Damon, right? He's the big American guy who's going to make sure that it opens big. And this thing was just a slog. This is not good.
So you're saying burn?
I would burn that.
It's not as bad as I was led to believe, if I can damn it with that faint praise, but I can't recommend wasting your time. I'd burn it too.
Oh, double burn. All right. Burn. There actually might be one more. Hold on. I guess I'll let this one come in. We'll do one more.
Oh, interesting.
Now, is that the original or the remake?
Watching on our YouTube channel. I'd say let's go. I don't know. JJ, are you saying Nightmare Alley remake or original? Let's see how quickly.
Well, I would definitely say, you know what? If it's the remake, I'm going to have to say Rented.
It is worth seeing for the production values, for the performances. Cate Blanchett is so amazing. So my friend described her as like she's just a god, and everyone around her are these insects that she's ruling over. Bradley Cooper also. The whole cast is really good. It is aggressively unpleasant. Again, director's vision. That is all by choice. It's another movie that I think about the audience before I recommend it. Like, for example, my mother would not like this movie, and I know that, and she would have a very unpleasant time. It's a very good, well-made movie with great performances. It's a rent from me, but like your mileage will vary.
I agree.
All right.
It's great to, no, I agree. It's great to look at. The performances are great. Cate Blanchett looks like her in her film noir best. Right.
Stunning.
Bradley Cooper, who was briefly tapped for a possible Oscar nomination for some reason, is very good into production design, the music. All that is terrific.
Elaine in the chat room is vehemently disagreeing with these two. He's calling you these two. Elaine, who's helping with the show, doing some graphics for us and other things. And yeah, she's okay. But she does have a request. So we'll do one more for Elaine.
9 days.
9 days.
Oh, 9 days.
9 days. What is that? 9 days? Do I know
Winston
that?
Duke in the afterlife, where he decides what souls get to be born.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
I've never seen that.
Stop. Oh, it's quite good. Yeah. Winston Duke is lovely, playing a character like we've never seen him play. Very subdued, and Benedict Wong is hilarious in it. I believe he got a Spirit Award nomination for it. Really special movie. Yeah, definitely rent.
I will, you know what, based on Janelle's recommendation, I'm going to actually illegally stream that. I mean, rent it.
I'm going to rent it. That sounds like a good movie. All right. Well, I think that's it. Do you guys know what movie you're seeing next? I don't know if we've discussed what's
up next.
I don't know.
Well, here's the thing, though. I know we were talking about show-wise, maybe doing a little Oscar situation.
Oh, yeah. Oh, also, have you seen, I'm sorry, is it Turning Red, the new Pixar?
I got the link to Turning Red.
Same here, yeah. I hear, you know, it's people have just said it's very interesting. It goes places they don't expect.
Well, it's funny because Pixar has the same problem as the other Disney property, which is Marvel, which is that they crank out so much product that they can't all seem the same. They've got to find little areas to explore that they haven't explored before. So just the brand doesn't get tired. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious to see what those unexplored areas are. But I have the link. I just haven't watched it.
Yeah, I plan on hopefully watching it today.
All right. Well, we'll be back soon with our next set of reviews and whatever else we decide to bring back. Today was Buy, Rent, or Burn. Who knows? Maybe we can bring back Instant Gratification, which used to be was streaming. Hey, there's this new thing called streaming.
Wow.
You can instantly watch things, and people are like, "What are you talking about?" But we reviewed things that were on streaming because there was nothing. But
it was House of Cards.
What's that?
It was House of Cards.
I think it was before that even.
Wow.
Right? This was 2011 or 12, 2013 maybe. All right, and can't wait to tune in again. Look at this. We're getting all these positive reviews coming in for you guys, getting good reviews. All right, well, thank you, Janelle, for joining us again. We really appreciate it. Mark, get yourself a new light.
It's the worst.
It's the best investment you'll ever make. I actually have green skin. This thing is incredible.
You're actually the lizard from the Spider-Man movie.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in, everybody, and we'll see you next time.